Take off your bonnet or be silent and serve. Decide now.
Never!
After listening, please subscribe, hit like, and leave a comment before we continue. When Anna first heard the hammer striking the anvil on that spring night, she could not sleep. The sounds drifted from the smithy at the edge of their community in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and each blow echoed in her chest like a church bell tolling before a storm. She lay on her bed beneath a rough quilt she had stitched the previous winter and stared through the small window at the starry sky spread over the fields, where the corn had already begun to push through after the spring plowing. She was 19 years old, and she knew time moved faster for her than for the other girls in the community. She was the daughter of Elder Yoder, and everyone expected her to be an example of piety, obedience, and submission to God's will. But Anna's heart did not obey the community's rules. It beat in rhythm with those hammer blows, and she knew who was working in the forge at that late hour. Isaac King, the son of a poor farmer who had died 3 years earlier, had been left with debts and a small plot of land that barely yielded a harvest. Isaac was a blacksmith, and though it was an honest trade, he had no land, no standing, and no future the community would approve of for an elder's daughter. Anna remembered the day she truly saw Isaac for the first time. It was 2 years earlier, during the wheat harvest, when the whole community gathered to help the Miller family bring in their crop. Isaac worked among the men, his shirt soaked with sweat, sandy hair stuck to his brow. When he lifted a heavy sheaf, Anna saw the strength in his hands, the breadth of his shoulders, and something inside her startled. But it was not only how he looked, it was his eyes. When he glanced at her across the field, his blue eyes held another world, full of questions, dreams, and a quiet defiance of everything around them. They began to meet in secret. At first they spoke in passing at Sunday gatherings, then took brief walks after services, and soon they met by the stream that ran through the woods between their farms. Isaac told her his dreams, how he longed to see the ocean and great cities, how he read forbidden books passed to him by an Englishman who bought horseshoes from him. He talked about freedom, about choice, about life beyond the Ordnung, the unwritten rules that governed every step of their existence. Anna listened with horror and wonder at once. She had been raised to believe pride was the greatest sin, that submission to the community was the path to salvation, that the English world was the devil's snare. But when Isaac spoke, his words did not sound like heresy. They sounded like poetry, like another kind of prayer. He did not dream of wealth or fame, he dreamed of being himself, of the right to choose his path. "Have you ever thought about how we did not choose this life?" he asked one evening as they sat on the stream bank, the sunset washing the sky in colors their community deemed too bright for clothing. "We were born here and told this is the only right way. But how can we know if we are not allowed to see anything else?" Anna had no answer. She wanted to tell him faith is not a choice, but a gift from God, that the community protects them from the world's evil. But the words stuck in her throat, because deep down she knew he was right. She had never chosen this life. It had been given to her like a name, like a fate, like a chain that kept her in place. Their love blossomed in secrecy, like wildflowers growing in the shadows of tall trees. They knew their meetings were a sin against the community, yet they could not stop. Each meeting was a risk. Each touch was a prayer to a God who might understand love better than the elders' rules. But secrets do not last long in an Amish world, where everyone knows their neighbor's business and whispers travel faster than the wind. Soon Anna felt the community's eyes grow sharper, and her father more often asked where she had been and with whom she had spoken. Then one morning at breakfast, as the family sat at the table, her father, her mother, 3 younger brothers, Yoder spoke the words that changed everything. "Jacob Stoltzfus has asked for your hand," he said without lifting his gaze from his bowl of oatmeal. "He is a good man with a large farm, 50 acres of the best land in the county. The wedding will be in late October, after the harvest." Anna felt the ground vanish beneath her feet. Jacob Stoltzfus was a widower, 42 years old, with 4 children by his first wife, who had died in childbirth the previous year. He was wealthy, respected, a friend of her father, but he was an older, cold man whose eyes held no room for dreams. "Father, she began, but her mother, Rachel, laid a hand on her shoulder, and squeezed hard enough to hurt. "This is a great honor, Anna," her mother said softly, but with unbending firmness. "Jacob is a godly man. You will care for his children and run his home. This is God's will." God's will. Those words were the final argument against which there was no defense. If something was God's will, any protest was a sin, any question an act of arrogance. Anna did not eat breakfast that morning. She stepped into the yard, where the chickens scratched for grain and her brothers readied the horses for a day's work in the fields. The world kept turning as if nothing had changed, but for her everything had fallen apart. That evening she ran to the forge. It was reckless, it was dangerous, but she could not wait for their next secret meeting. She had to tell Isaac. She had to see him, touch him, be sure he was real, that their love was not just a dream she would wake from. The smithy glowed in the dark like a heart beating in the chest of night. Isaac stood by the fire, and when he saw her in the doorway, his face reflected all the pain she felt. "You know," she said, "it was not a question." "The whole community knows," he answered, his voice raw. "Eli Yoder announced it to the elders today. He is very proud. His daughter will marry the richest widower in the county." They stood facing each other, only a few steps apart, yet the distance felt impossible. Anna wanted to rush to him, to hold him, to say she would not marry Jacob, that she would run away with him, that they could start a new life far away. But the words would not come. She knew it was impossible. To run meant shunning the harshest punishment in the Amish world, when the entire community, including your own family, must avoid you, not speak to you, not share a table. It would mean she would never again see her parents, her brothers, everyone she loved. It would be like dying without dying. "What are we going to do?" she whispered. Isaac stepped to her and took her hands. His palms were warm from the fire and rough with calluses, but his touch was gentle. "I do not know," he said honestly, "but I know this. I cannot live in a world where you belong to another man. I cannot watch you walk beside him to church, bear his children, live a life that kills everything you truly are." "Then what?" Anna asked, hope, terror, and despair braided in her voice. Isaac was silent a long time, staring into the fire. Then he turned back to her, a decision in his eyes she had never seen before. "I will go," he said quietly. "I will go into the English world. I will find work, earn money, build a life beyond this. And then I will come back for you, if you still want to go with me." Tears ran down Anna's cheeks. She knew it was a wild idea. Young men who left during Rumspringa rarely came back. The English world was vast, complex, tempting. Those who returned were often broken, hollow, disappointed. "How long?" she asked. "I do not know. A year, maybe 2. But I will come back, Anna. I promise. I will come back, and we will find a way to be together." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe love could defeat rules, that dreams could become real. But deep in her heart, she knew a hard truth. In the Amish world, individual will always loses to the will of the community. Always. That night, they said goodbye by the forge. Isaac kissed her their first and perhaps last true kiss, and it held everything: love, despair, hope, and farewell. Anna walked home along the dark roads and did not look back, because she knew that if she did, she would not be able to go. By morning, Isaac King was gone. His smithy stood empty, the fire cold, the door creaking in the wind. The community spoke of him for weeks, how he was weak, how the English world had taken another soul, how this was a warning to any young person who dreamed of life beyond the Ordnung. And Anna prepared for the wedding that would come in the fall. She stitched her blue wedding dress, taught Jacob's children how to address her, and helped her mother ready the dowry. Each night she lay in her bed and listened to the silence where the hammer once rang, and she prayed to God, if he existed, if he saw her pain, to give her strength to endure what was coming. Summer crawled by like molasses poured from a jar on a cold day. Each morning Anna woke with a heaviness in her chest, as if a stone lay on her heart. She did her duties mechanically, milked cows, baked bread, worked the garden where tomatoes flushed red and squash grew so fast they had to be picked daily. The community saw an example of a virtuous daughter, obedient, diligent, modest. No one saw how each night she stepped onto the porch and looked up at the stars, searching for an answer to the question she dared not say aloud. Will he come back? Jacob Stoltzfus visited every Sunday after church. He sat in the front room with her father discussing cattle prices, the harvest, community matters. Sometimes he called Anna in to bring lemonade or a slice of rhubarb pie, and when she entered, his eyes slid over her with a cool appraisal, like a horse being judged at auction. He was not a cruel man, but neither was he kind. He was practical, efficient, a man who viewed marriage as a contract, a partnership for running a household and raising children, not a union of hearts. Jacob's children, 3 boys and 1 girl, were quiet, shy creatures with large, worried eyes. Anna tried to befriend them, bringing cookies she baked herself and reading Bible stories. The youngest, 5-year-old Mary, sometimes took Anna's hand, and in those moments a sharp, clear pain cut through Anna. The child was blameless. She had lost her mother and needed another. But how could Anna give love when her own heart felt dead? August brought brutal heat. The fields dried out, and farmers rose before sunrise to water animals from wells that sank lower each day. On Sunday, the pastor, Jonas Beller, preached about trials God sends to the faithful, about suffering that refines the soul as fire refines gold. Anna sat on a hard wooden bench among the women and girls, dressed in her black bonnet and blue dress, and listened to words about submission, patience, humility. Once those words had given her peace. Now they sounded like the walls of a prison. Late in August, as Anna hung laundry on the line out back, her childhood friend, Sarah Baylor, came by. A year younger than Anna, Sarah was married to Elias Miller and pregnant with her first child. She radiated the calm happiness of someone who had found her place in the order of things. "I heard my mother talking to Rebecca Lapp about your wedding," Sarah said, helping pin a sheet. "They say it will be the biggest of the year. 300 guests, maybe more." "Yes," Anna answered softly, fixing a wooden clothespin to the damp fabric. Sarah hesitated, then asked gently, "Are you happy, Anna?" A simple question pierced all the armor Anna had built over the months. She stopped, holding her brother's wet shirt, and felt something inside her crack. She began, but could not finish. What could she say? That her heart belonged to another man who had vanished into the English world. That she prayed each night for his return, though she knew that even if he did, they could not be together. That she felt as if she were being buried alive. Sarah set a hand on Anna's shoulder, warm with sympathy. "I know about you and Isaac," she whispered. "The whole community knows. But he left Anna. He chose the world instead of us, instead of you. Jacob is a good match. He will give you a home, safety, respect. Sometimes love comes later, after the wedding. Sometimes God gives us what we need, not what we want." Anna knew Sarah meant to help, but her words were salt in a wound. She did not want safety. She did not want respect. She wanted Isaac, his laughter, his dreams, the way he looked at her as if she were more than an elder's daughter, as if she were the most interesting person in the world. "Thank you, Sarah," Anna said, turning so her friend would not see the tears in her eyes. "You are right. God knows best." When Sarah left, Anna let herself weep quietly among the damp linens that hung on the lines like ghosts of past dreams. September arrived with cool wind and the promise of harvest. Apples in her father's orchard swelled with juice, red and green, and the community readied for gathering in. It was the busiest season, from dawn to dark, preserving vegetables, cooking fruit into jam, filling pantries with grain and potatoes for winter. Anna worked with the other women at Jacob's house, preparing his farm for the wedding. They washed windows, whitewashed walls, and sewed new curtains. Jacob's mother, a stern older woman named Eliza, constantly criticized Anna's work, finding fault in every corner and every seam. "Jacob's wife must be a perfect housekeeper," she said sharply. "My daughter-in-law, Sarah, may her memory be blessed, kept this home spotless. You must meet her standard." Anna bit her tongue and kept working. She understood this was a test of endurance and submission. In the Amish world, a young wife must honor her mother-in-law nearly as her own mother, and any protest would be seen as defiance. But that was not the hardest part. The hardest part was that Jacob's house was full of his dead wife's presence. Her embroidery hung on the walls, her clothing still sat in the wardrobe, her Bible lay on the nightstand, marked in the Psalms. Anna felt less like a future wife and more like a replacement, a shadow meant to fill the emptiness another woman left. One evening, after another long day at Jacob's, Anna saw light in Isaac's old smithy. Her heart lurched. Impossible. The forge had been empty for months. No one dared take it over because the community believed Isaac might return, and then his property must wait for him. But the light was real, bright and warm in the autumn dusk. Anna stopped in the road, her heart pounding so hard she felt it in her temples. Maybe it was Isaac. Maybe he had come back. She walked closer, trying to stay calm though her legs trembled. The door stood open, and inside she saw a man by the fire. For one wondrous instant, she thought it was him. But when the figure turned, she saw a stranger's face. A young man, perhaps 25, dressed plainly in Amish clothes, with dark hair and warm brown eyes. He smiled when he saw her. "Good evening," he said. "You must be from the community. I am Neat Fisher, the new blacksmith. The elders hired me from a community in Ohio." Anna felt her last hope shatter like a glass jar falling to the floor. They had hired a new smith. That meant the community no longer expected Isaac to return. His place had been filled. His share in the community had been given to another. "Yes," she whispered. "I am from here. Welcome." She left before the new blacksmith could ask anything else, walking fast, almost running the dark roads back to her parents' house. That night, when everyone slept, Anna did something she had never done. She crept to the attic where old things were stored and found a small mirror, an object the community considered a sign of pride and vanity. She looked at her reflection by candlelight. Her face was pale, her eyes clouded, her lips pressed tight. She barely recognized herself. Where was the girl who dreamed by the stream? Where was the woman who believed in love? "Who am I?" she whispered to the glass. "What is left of me?" The mirror did not answer. It only showed what she already knew. She was becoming what the community expected: an obedient wife, a compliant woman, the shadow of who she might have been. October arrived in an explosion of color. The trees around the farms burned red, orange, and gold, as if the earth itself flamed in a farewell fire before winter. The harvest was finished, the pantries full, the animals fattened for the cold. It was wedding time, and the first great wedding of the season would be that of Anna Yoder and Jacob Stoltzfus. Anna stood in her room, dressed in the new blue gown she had stitched for months. The fabric was plain, without adornment, as the Ordnung required, but her mother had added tiny, neat stitches along the edges, a sign of love hidden inside simplicity. On Anna's head rested a new white cap, the symbol of her passage into married life. Outside, guests were already gathering. Buggies arrived one after another, black carriages lining the road behind teams of horses. Women carried pots of food, and men set long tables in her father's barn where the ceremony and feast would be held. The entire community was there, more than 300 people dressed in black and white, ready to witness the union of two families. Anna's mother entered, her face bright with pride and quiet sorrow. "It is time, daughter," she said softly. "Are you ready?" Ready. How can one be ready to give her life to a man she does not love? How can one be ready to bury her dreams, her heart, herself? Anna nodded. She had learned to say yes, even when everything inside her screamed no. They descended the stairs, and Anna saw her father waiting below in his best black suit, beard neatly combed, face stern and solemn. He was so proud. His daughter would marry one of the wealthiest men in the community. It confirmed his status, his wisdom, God's blessing on his household. Ila Yoder took his daughter's arm, and they walked toward the barn where the guests had gathered. Anna moved as if in a fog, seeing no faces, hearing no whispers. She felt only the pressure of her father's hand at her elbow guiding her forward toward her fate. Suddenly, just as they were almost at the barn doors, she heard a sound that stopped her heart. The clatter of hooves a horse running faster than the Amish ever allowed. They never rode fast. Speed was a sign of impatience, pride, disrespect for God's time. But this horse was galloping, and the sound was loud, insistent, unstoppable. Everyone turned. Anna turned, and she saw what she had never dared to imagine. Isaac King was coming back. His buggy was racing up the road toward the Yoder's farm, kicking up clouds of dust. But he was not alone. A woman sat beside him. Anna could not breathe. Time stopped. Isaac. He had returned. He had promised, and he had returned. But who was this woman? The buggy stopped before the crowd of guests, and Isaac jumped down from the wagon. He was different. His hair was shorter, his clothes cleaner, but most of all his eyes. There was something new in them, something hardened, as if he had seen things that changed him forever. And the woman who stepped down after him was English. Anna saw it at once. The jeans, the short-sleeved shirt, her hair loose over her shoulders instead of tucked under a prayer cap. She was young, maybe 26, pretty in that particular way English women were, confident, vivid, free. She carried a camera and a notebook. A whisper ran through the crowd like wind across a wheat field. Isaac King had returned, with an English woman, at Anna Yoder's wedding. Eli Yoder let go of his daughter's hand and stepped forward, his face twisted with anger. Isaac King, he said loudly so all could hear, you left the community. You have no right to be here. This is a sacred day, and you profane it with your presence and the presence of this English woman. Isaac looked straight at Anna, ignoring the elder. His eyes met hers, and in that look there was everything. Love, sorrow, despair, and something else, something like betrayal. I came back, Anna, he said, his voice trembling. I promised I would come back. I worked in Philadelphia on construction, earned money. I did everything I planned. I came back for you. The English woman beside him laid a hand on his shoulder, a possessive gesture louder than any words. Isaac, she said softly, with a light accent, maybe we should not. But Isaac did not listen. He was looking only at Anna. Who is she? Anna asked, her voice strangely calm, though inside she was coming apart. The woman stepped forward, smiling easily, as if she were at a party and not at a wedding in a closed religious community. Forgive the intrusion, she said. I am Emma Grayson. I am a journalist from New York. I am writing a book about Amish life, about people who leave the community and those who return. Isaac told me his story, and it is so moving. Love that crosses the barriers between worlds. I have to document it. She raised the camera as if to take a photo, but several men of the community stepped forward, blocking her way. Photographs were forbidden, considered crude offenses, a violation of the commandment against making graven images. Anna felt the world spin around her. Isaac had come back. But he had not come back alone. He had come with a woman who looked at all of them like curious insects under a microscope. A woman who wanted to turn their lives, their pain, their love into a story for the English. Are you with her? Anna asked, and at last her voice cracked. Isaac frowned, flustered. No, I mean, she helped me. When I was in Philadelphia, I met her in a coffee shop. She told me about her project, and I thought that if our story became part of a book, maybe the community would see that love matters more than rules, that we can build bridges between worlds. You fool, Anna whispered, and there was so much pain in her words that several women in the crowd gasped. The elder's daughter had never spoken that way. Never. You think the community will change because some English woman writes a book about us? You think you can show up here on my wedding day with a stranger and that I will just run into your arms, that everything will be as it was? Isaac took a step toward her, his face stricken. Anna, I love you. I have always loved you. I left to build a life for us. I thought. You thought about yourself, Anna cried, tears running down her cheeks now, and she did not care. All the anger, all the hurt she had held inside for months tore free. You left and you abandoned me here. You knew my father had promised me to Jacob. You knew I could not wait forever. You knew and you left anyway, and now you come back with an English woman who wants to turn our lives into entertainment for a world that never understands us. Emma Grayson looked uncomfortable for the first time since she had arrived. She lowered the camera. Isaac said that you would want a different life, she said quietly, that you feel trapped here. Anna looked at her, and there was something hard in her eyes. You know nothing about me, about us. You came here with your ideas about who we are, what we feel. But we are not characters in your book. We are living people with hearts that beat and break. Silence fell over the crowd. Even the birds seemed to stop singing. Eli Yoder stepped forward, his voice cold and hard as stone. Isaac King, you must leave. Now, take this woman and go. You no longer belong to this community. You made your choice when you left. I did not choose her, Isaac shouted desperately. I chose Anna. I have always chosen her. He turned to Anna and dropped to his knees right in the middle of the yard, in front of everyone. Anna, please, do not marry him. Come with me. We can start a new life. I will earn enough for us to have a house, children. We can be happy. Please. Anna looked at him, the man she loved so much her heart felt ready to explode. She saw the sincerity in his eyes, the despair, the love. But she also saw what he did not understand. He was already different. The English world had changed him. He thought he could just carry their love into that reality, dress it up as a story for a book, make it acceptable to both worlds. But love does not work like that. Not in their world. Stand up, she said softly. Stand up, Isaac. He rose slowly, hope in his eyes. Anna turned to her father, to Jacob Stoltzfus, who stood by the barn with an unreadable expression. She looked at all the gathered guests, at the community that had known her since the day she was born. She looked at her mother, at Sarah, her friend, at all the women who lived the life that now waited for her. And then she did the thing no one expected. She took off her white wedding cap and set it on the ground. I cannot, she whispered. I cannot marry Jacob. But I also cannot go with you, Isaac. You think the English world will give us freedom, but that is not the freedom I am seeking. I do not want to be a character in someone's book. I do not want to live in a world where everything must be documented, explained, justified. She turned to her father, and there was a strength in her voice she had not known she possessed. Father, I will not marry Jacob Stoltzfus. I know this will bring shame on our family. I know the community will judge me, but I cannot live a lie. I cannot stand before God and promise to love a man I do not love. Eli Yoder looked at his daughter, and different feelings wrestled on his face. Anger, pain, disappointment, and something else, perhaps understanding. He was a stern man, but not a cruel one. He remembered being young, how he had loved Anna's mother, how joyful he had been when she accepted his proposal. What do you want, Anna? He asked at last, his voice tired. Anna did not know the answer. She only knew what she did not want. She did not want Jacob. She did not want to run away with Isaac into a world that would turn their love into a commodity. She wanted to be herself. But who was she? After all these months of pretending, submitting, denying herself, who remained beneath all those layers of duty? I do not know, she whispered honestly, but I want time to find out. There was no wedding that day. Guests drove home in shock and confusion. Some whispered about disgrace, others about courage. Jacob Stoltzfus left in silence, his face unreadable, his children behind him, holding hands. Isaac stood in the yard, lost, his world shattered. Emma Grayson tried to speak to Anna, but the elders asked her to leave firmly, yet politely. Anna sat in her room, still in her blue wedding dress, and looked out the window. The sun was setting, painting the sky the colors of fire. The world had not ended. It kept turning, even after she had done the unthinkable. Her father came to her that night. He sat on the edge of her bed, and for a long time they sat in silence. At last he spoke. Your mother is crying, he said quietly. She fears you will be shunned, that the community will turn away from you. I know, Anna replied. Jacob has a right to compensation. He spent money preparing for the wedding. His honor is wounded. I know. Eleodor let out a deep sigh. But you will not be shunned. I will not allow it. You are my daughter, and even if you did what grieves me, what brought shame to our family, I will not turn my back on you. God teaches us forgiveness. The community must learn to forgive as well. Anna turned to her father, and for the first time in months, she saw not judgment in his eyes, but love. Stern, complicated love, but love nonetheless. "Thank you, father," she whispered. He stood and went to the door, but paused on the threshold. Isaac King, he is a young man with dreams. Dreams can be dangerous, Anna. They can blind us to reality. But life without dreams is dangerous too. It turns us into stone. He was quiet. Perhaps I forgot that, being an elder. Perhaps I was too severe. When he left, Anna allowed herself to cry not from grief, but from relief. She did not know what would come next, but at least now she was honest. At least now she had not betrayed herself. The next morning, Isaac came to their farm. He was alone. He had sent Emma Grayson back to New York the night before. Anna met him by the old apple orchard where they had once met in secret. "I was a fool," he said at once. "You were right. I thought only about myself, about my dreams. I did not think that you would have to wait to endure. I did not think that coming back with an English woman would look like betrayal." Anna looked at the man she had loved so long and so fiercely. She saw the changes in him, the way he stood, spoke, looked around. The English world had left its mark. "Emma is a good person," Isaac went on. "She truly wanted to understand us, to write honestly about our life. But I understand now that some things cannot be translated into language the outside world will accept. Some things belong only to us." "What will you do now?" Anna asked. Isaac looked over the fields, at the farms stretching to the horizon, at people working their land, living their simple, hard, meaningful lives. "I do not know. I have seen the world, Anna. I have seen the ocean, skyscrapers, millions of people running somewhere, always rushing, chasing something they never quite seem to find. And I thought, maybe what we have here is not a prison. Maybe it is a gift. Simplicity, community, a bond with the land, with God, with each other." He looked at her with hope and fear. "But I also know I cannot live here if you are not with me. If you tell me to go, I will go. If you tell me to stay, I will try to find a way to live between two worlds. To be Amish, but an Amish man who has seen the other side, who asks questions and still honors the answers of our forefathers." Anna took his hand. She felt the calluses in his palm, the warmth of his skin. "I do not know if we can be together," she said honestly. "Too much has happened, too much hurt. But I know this, I do not want you to leave. The community needs people like you, people who ask questions, who dream and still remain, who build bridges instead of running away." They stood together beneath the apple trees that had already shed their leaves, preparing for winter. The world around them was quiet, calm, full of the promise of a new beginning. "What did Emma say when you said goodbye?" Anna asked. Isaac gave a sad smile. "She said our story did not end the way she expected, that there is no neat ending, no, they lived happily ever after, or tragic parting. Only life, messy, inexplicable life." "And what did you say?" "I said that is what makes us people, not characters in a book. We do not end, we just go on." Weeks turned into months. The community slowly forgave Anna for calling off the wedding. Jacob Stoltzfus found another wife, a widow from a neighboring district. A practical woman who understood their union was an arrangement, not a romance. His children found a new mother, and life on his farm went on as before. Isaac reopened the forge. The elders allowed him to stay, but with conditions. He had to undergo a period of repentance, publicly admit his mistakes, and ask the community's forgiveness. He did so at a Sunday gathering, standing before everyone, his voice steady but sincere. He spoke of pride, of how he had thought he knew better than the forefathers, of how the English world had tempted him with promises of freedom that proved empty. but he also spoke of what he had learned. That the Amish community has something the English world has lost. A true bond, a true community where people care for one another, not because it is profitable, but because it is right. Anna listened among the other women and felt something inside her begin to heal. Perhaps this was not the fairy tale she had imagined. Perhaps their love would never be simple, easy, approved by all. But it was real, and sometimes real matters more than perfect. Winter brought snow that covered the fields with a white quilt of silence. Anna and Isaac saw each other rarely, always in the presence of others, as the Ordnung required after a scandal. They spoke of simple things, the weather, the cattle's health, plans for spring plowing. But beneath those plain words ran another conversation, a conversation of souls that knew each other deeper than words could say. Spring came with the promise of a new beginning. The ground thawed, the first crocuses pushed through the snow, birds returned from the south. And one evening, as Anna worked in the garden, Isaac came to her, formally, properly, as a man should who respects tradition. "Anna Yoder," he said, his voice solemn, "I would like your father's permission to ask for your hand. I know I am not wealthy. I know my past is not spotless. But I can promise you honest work, a faithful heart, and a life lived together before God and the community." Anna straightened, brushed the soil from her hands. The world around them was alive. Bees hummed over flowers, the wind whispered through the young leaves, somewhere children's laughter carried from after-school play. "And what about your dreams?" she asked softly. "What about the ocean, the world beyond our farms?" Isaac smiled, and in his smile was the wisdom that comes from pain and loss and coming home. "I have seen the ocean, Anna. It is vast, boundless, beautiful. But it did not give me what I was seeking. I thought freedom was the absence of boundaries. Now I understand. True freedom is choosing your boundaries. Choosing to live in a community not because you must, but because you want to. Choosing to love you not because tradition commands it, but because my heart knows no other way." Tears filled Anna's eyes, but these were different tears, not the ones she had cried months before. These were tears of relief, acceptance, and something new hope, not a naive dream, but a deliberate choice. "Then go to my father," she said, "and I will say yes. Not because I was told to, not because it is my duty, but because I choose you. Every day, again and again." Their wedding was in the fall, a year after the day that was supposed to be Anna's wedding to Jacob. It was a simpler ceremony, without 300 guests, without splendor. But when Anna and Isaac stood before the minister and exchanged vows, the room was full of something greater than finery. It was full of truth, forgiveness, and a love that had endured testing. Illa Yoder blessed their union, and when he laid his hands on the young couple's heads, his voice trembled with feeling. "May God grant you the wisdom to know the difference between tradition that strengthens and tradition that suffocates. May He give you the courage to ask questions and the humility to accept answers. May He lead you on a path that is not always easy, but always true." When the ceremony ended and the guests began to leave, Anna noticed a stranger by the door. A woman around 30, plainly dressed, without a camera, without a notebook. Their eyes met, and Anna recognized her, Emma Grayson. She came to Anna, smiling cautiously. "I know I had no right to come," she said quietly, "but I wanted to see the end of the story. Isaac wrote to me, told me about the wedding. I promised no book, no photographs. I just wanted to see if a happy ending really exists." Anna looked at Isaac, talking with her brothers, laughing at something. She looked at her mother hugging Isaac's mother, at her father standing with the other elders, his face at peace. She looked at the community people who had known her all her life, who had judged her, forgiven her, and welcomed her back. "I do not know if a happy ending exists," Anna said to Emma, "but an honest ending does. An ending where people make hard choices, live with the consequences, and still find ways to love, to forgive, to grow. Perhaps that is better than a fairy tale." Emma nodded, her eyes bright with tears. "Thank you," she whispered, "for reminding me that the best stories are the ones we live, not the ones we write." She left as quietly as she had come, fading into the autumn dusk, leaving Anna and Isaac with their new life, their new promises, their new understanding of what it means to be free. 5 years passed. Anna and Isaac lived in a small house by the forge that Isaac built with his own hands, with help from the community. They had 2 children, a daughter, Sarah, with her mother's dark eyes and her father's questioning mind, and a son, Eli, named for his grandfather, who was learning to walk stumbling and rising again like all children. Isaac worked as a blacksmith, but he also became something more for the community. He was a bridge between the old ways and the new world that kept pressing at their borders. When questions arose about how to interact with the English, which technologies to accept, which changes were permissible, Isaac was often the one who helped find balance. He had seen both worlds. He knew each had its gifts and its traps. Anna taught at the local Amish school, teaching children to read, write, and do their figures, but also, and this mattered most, to think. One summer day, as Anna sat on the porch nursing baby Eli, a buggy pulled into their yard. A middle-aged woman climbed down, elegant, silver hair in a bun. Anna did not recognize her at first, but as the woman came closer, smiling through tears, Anna started. "Emma?" Emma Grayson was older, with fine lines by her eyes, but her smile was the same warm one. "Hello, Anna. Forgive the surprise. I hesitated a long time about coming, but I had something to tell you." Anna invited her in, and they sat in the kitchen, which smelled of fresh baked bread and an apple pie cooling on the sill. Emma looked around with quiet wonder, as if seeing a sanctuary. "I never wrote that book," Emma said. "After that wedding, after what you told me, I understood I had no right to tell your story. Some stories do not belong to the world. They belong to the people living them." "Then why are you here?" Anna asked gently, without judgment. Emma took an old, worn book from her bag, the edges frayed. "I wrote a different book," she said. "Not about the Amish. About myself. About a New York woman so busy chasing other people's stories that she forgot to live her own. About how meeting you and Isaac changed everything. How I learned that authenticity matters more than sensation, that silence often speaks louder than noise." She held the book out to Anna. On the cover was a simple drawing, a field under a starry sky. "This is for you. There are no names, no details that could identify you. But there is a note of thanks to a woman who taught me to see beauty in simplicity, strength in humility, courage in choosing to stay when the world calls you to run." Anna took the book and turned the pages. She could not read it all now, but the words that caught her eye were beautiful, honest, full of hurt and hope. "Thank you," she whispered, "for respecting our story enough not to use it." Emma stayed for dinner, and Isaac joined when he finished at the forge. The 3 of them sat together, people from different worlds, eating simple food, bread, cheese, vegetables from the garden, cold well water. Conversation flowed easily about children, work, the small joys of everyday life. Before leaving, Emma hugged Anna tightly, like an old friend. "Are you happy?" she asked, the same question Sarah had asked many years before. Anna looked at her home, at the forge where Isaac shaped useful, beautiful things from metal and fire, at Sarah playing with the chicks in the yard, at the sleeping baby in her arms. "I do not know if I am happy in the way you mean," Anna said honestly. "Life is hard. Children fall ill, harvests sometimes fail. There are days I am tired to the bone. There are moments I ask myself, what if? What if Isaac had not left? What if I had run away with him? What if I had married Jacob and lived the life everyone expected?" She paused, searching for the right words. "But I also know this. I am living my life, not someone else's. I have made choices, hard choices, and I live with the consequences. I have love, real love, grounded not in fantasy, but in the daily choice to stay together, even when it is hard. I have purpose, a community, a faith that has meaning because I came to it through doubts and questions. Yes, I am happy. Not perfectly, not always, but truly." Emma smiled through tears. "That is the best answer I have ever heard," she said. The years kept flowing. Sarah grew into a strong, bright young woman who asked too many questions and dreamed of becoming a teacher like her mother. Eli became a blacksmith, apprenticing under his father, but with his own style that blended traditional methods with new ideas. More children came: Rebecca, Jonas, little Mary, each one unique, each with their own dreams, questions, struggles. Eli Yoder, Anna's father, died peacefully at the age of 78, surrounded by family. His last words to Anna were, "You taught me that love matters more than rules. Thank you, daughter, for that lesson." The community changed slowly, as all things do in the Amish world. Some young people left, tempted by technology and freedom. Others stayed, finding new meaning in old ways. Anna and Isaac were among those who helped the community find balance, to be true to themselves without closing up, traditional without being frozen in time. Hit like and don't forget to subscribe. The next story will be even more intense. But if you are under 18, don't even think about clicking next.